we have to have greater clarity on health care. I mean, the tax increases are just stunning, on medical devices, for example. On medical devices just went a big hit on this area. Their taxes, they tax you if you have insurance. They tax you if you don't have insurance. They tax your prosthetics. They tax your bedpans. They tax your tongue depressors. But most of all, they tax your patients. I think it's really important now that we be very clear about doing things that are going to help small business people create jobs and invest in America.
You notice he didn't answer the question. You did, but you said you didn't answer or whether you would. It's not about the past, Charlie. It's about the future. What you're hearing very clearly is a difference in priorities. Tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires, but not a commitment to increase the federal minimum wage. I would support an increase in the federal minimum wage. I think we need to be careful about the timing and when that would come and the impact that it would have on the economy. But I think that we need to do that. Again, it's a question of priorities and who's looking out for the folks here in the Valley versus who's looking out for big business and large corporations. And I think that Charlie just gave you a very clear answer to that question. The previous question that I'd like to have the opportunity to clarify about is the gentleman asked the question. I would depend on what his income level was. I am in favor of extending the Bush tax cuts for 98% of Americans. And so if you had an income level of below $250,000, I would support the child credit, and I would look for opportunities going forward to address it at income levels over $250,000.
Thank you. We're going to change our focus now to foreign policy and global issues. This question goes to the mayor first. Do you support current policy in Afghanistan?
I do. I think that clearly the war in Afghanistan has taken a tremendous toll on the men and women of our military and their families that are trying to support them. We are in the 9th year of this war. It is the longest war in our country's history. But I think we cannot forget why we are in Afghanistan. 3,000 people were murdered on a Tuesday because they showed up for work. It is important that we be there. I support the December review of the generals, and I look forward to hearing the results of that review. But we cannot forget why it is that we are in Afghanistan. I think that any decisions to withdraw troops next year, President Obama has set a timeline of the middle of next year, but any decisions to withdraw troops should be conditions-based on the ground and based on the recommendation of the generals in the field. But and I think it's equally important that we support our veterans when they come back from Afghanistan. And I've been disappointed that Congressman Dent hasn't always been there for our veterans that are putting themselves in harm's way in defense of our country.
Yeah, thank you. I've been generally supportive of the Afghan policy outlined by President Obama at West Point last year, as outlined by General Christopher Petraeus. I think it's generally a good plan. I wish the Commander-in-Chief were more committed to his own policy. I think it was a terrible mistake to announce a withdrawal schedule. At the same time, he announced a strategy. It has sent very mixed signals to friend and foe alike in that part of the world. They're waiting us out. It's getting more difficult to get collaboration from the Pakistanis and even the Afghan government currently because they believe we're leaving. And it's a very mixed message. I've had conversations as recently as September in Afghanistan with General Petraeus, Ambassador Eikenberry, Admiral Mullen about this, and they understand the problem. We can't nuance this withdrawal date. It's very hard. I get it. I understand it's all conditions-based. I understand it's aspirational, but that's not good enough in that part of the world. So that is a big part of the policy, one of the problems, and I think the President needs to speak more forcefully on that. I do want to say something about our veterans. And John, you sent out a piece of mail. I brought it here with me. Soldier, bloody face, pulling a prosthetic limb. I've been endorsed by the Veterans of Foreign Wars, their political committee. They support me because I've been supportive of our troops and those who have served our country. I've been to every military hospital in Afghanistan, one in Bagram. I've been to the military hospitals in Baghdad, Balad, I've been to the launch school and to the funerals of some of our men who gave that last full measure of devotion, and women as well. But I think it's shameful that you would send out a piece like this. I voted to increase funding from about $29.5 billion to the current level of about almost $48 billion. And you keep saying I cut veterans' support. That is false. It's outrageous. But this prosthetic limb, John, you voted to tax it at 2.3%. It's a Class 1 device. It's part of the health care law. You're taxing the limbs and the prosthetics of people who have served our country and their wheelchairs. So you should be aware of that, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Thank you.
Our next question has to do with the Middle East, and this will go to the Congressman first. What's your position on Israel's settlements in the West Bank, and more generally, what should the United States' role be in these negotiations this year?
Well, with respect to settlements on the West Bank, that should be part of any negotiations between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. As I said earlier, I was very disturbed by the Obama administration's hysterical reaction to a housing development in North Jerusalem that was not a contested area. And essentially, they almost rose to the level of summoning the Japanese ambassador, to the White House after Pearl Harbor. I mean, this is Israel's a friend. It's an ally. We should speak to them as a friend and an ally. We may have differences of opinion from time to time, but there are ways to deal with your friends. And that was not the right way to deal with it. Look, we all want a peaceful resolution in the Middle East. And I certainly encourage the negotiations in Bahrain. I have very real concerns about the ability of Mahmoud Abbas, or Abu Mazen as they call him in that part of the world. I have very real concerns about his ability to negotiate on behalf of the Palestinian Authority. He does not have the ability to control Hamas, which rules the Gaza Strip. Israel disengaged from the Gaza Strip in 2005, August of 2005. What did Israel receive in return for that disengagement, for that withdrawal? A rain of rockets into cities, towns like Sderot and elsewhere. So while I'm encouraged that there are peace talks, I am very concerned that Abu Mazen, leading Fatah, is not going to be able to control Hamas. So whatever deal is entered into between the Palestinians and the Israelis, I'm afraid could never be realized and could never be final. Because if there's going to be a two-state solution, we cannot have one of those states being a terrorist state. That would be a terrible mistake for the region. It would be bad for Israel. So we have to enter into this peace process. The settlements, the West Bank certainly are part of that discussion. It should be part of the negotiations. I believe that they can be resolved in a diplomatic manner. Just hoping that Abu Mazen is going to be able to control his folks on the Gaza Strip, which he cannot do that.
Thanks, Glenn. The reality is that we need to stand with Israel. We need to continue to strengthen the U.S.-Israeli relationship. And that I, too, am encouraged that there are negotiations underway, but they need to be done under the fact that everybody at that table needs to recognize Israel's right to exist, Israel's right as historically to that area as Israel's and the Jewish people's homeland, and Israel's right to protect and defend itself and renounce terrorism. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they need to renounce terrorism if they want to have a seat at the table. I think we all recognize that Israel, as I said, is our strongest ally in the Middle East. They are one of the few democracies in the Middle East, and we need to stand with them in the peace process. But the United States can play a pivotal role in these negotiations. But it's got to be done recognizing that Israel has the right to exist, to protect itself, and we should move towards a two-state solution. I think that's the only real way that we're going to have peace in this region and have the Palestinians and the Israelis live side by side in peace. But Israel is a sovereign nation and needs to determine a path forward for themselves. Should the United States play a role? Yes, they should. They should continue to bring the parties together. But we also need to understand that the very important relationship that we have with Israel and stand with our allies at all times.
Thank you both. How would you counsel our friends and allies in Israel regarding concerns that Iran is developing nuclear weapons?
Well, there's no doubt that Iran is a very real threat to Israel, and that Iran cannot be allowed, under any circumstances, to acquire a nuclear weapon. It's a threat to Israel, it's a threat